here's a strange contrast. 2 years ago, Sharri Markson, then on the Daily Telegraph, as you know, she's also a host here, broke the news that Deputy Prime Minister Barnaby Joyce had not just had an affair with a staff member, but was having a baby with her. And for that, Markson was attacked on the ABC, heckled and peppered with rude questions.
Does a head of steam get up in stories like this where the editor wants a scalp and wants you to keep going until you get that scalp, and that's a victory? It drives circulation, it's a great yarn.
No, it's absolutely not.
And Ida Buttrose, who's now chairman of the ABC, back then said that this kind of stuff was none of our business, even though we had a Deputy Prime Minister with a pregnant lover on staff on the public payroll.
It's his business. It's really none of our business. But the fact that he's having an affair is really his business, not ours.
But how things change. Last night, Ida Buttrose's ABC, that employs that Ellen Fanning you heard heckling Sharri, ran a whole program. They didn't just reveal that one Morrison government minister, Alan Tudge, had had an affair with his married media advisor, but that another minister, Christian Porter, had, oh, this will shock you, allegedly kissed and cuddled a woman who wasn't his then wife.
When we were at the bar, I noticed that Minister Porter was with someone in the corner, and they were clearly very intimate. They were cuddling, they were kissing. It was quite confronting, given that we were in such a public place.
Yeah, Porter denies that, by the way. And there was no baby involved, and Porter didn't have some new lover on staff and all that kind of stuff. So what's actually the difference then between what Markson did, which was a substantial story, and what the ABC did, which wasn't? I think it's because it's the ABC that did it. And suddenly no one on the ABC, that I can hear anyway, is complaining about this story at all. That's how troubled these things can be, by the way. And others on the left, how they've changed their tune as well. When Markson wrote her story, Bernard Keane of Crikey blasted her, saying what Barnaby Joyce does personally with a consenting adult is no concern of ours. But with this far more trivial ABC story on Porter and Tudge, Keane suddenly has flipped 180 degrees. The rush by the government and its media supporters to attack last night's Four Corners is, as not in the public interest, is not merely wrong, but offensively so. Good heavens above. Joining me is Sharri Markson, investigations editor for the Australian newspaper now. Sharri, let's draw a distinction here. I want to make clear, I think your story was substantial, and the ABC story last night was, or on Monday, was not. What's your verdict? Are they of equal public interest?
Look, I think stories like this are always going to be controversial. There's always going to be a debate about whether or not they're in the public interest and they should be published, because they do make people feel, you know, intrinsically uncomfortable when such intimate details about a political figure are, you know, broadcast in the media. The reason we felt our story about Barnaby Joyce was in the public interest was, as you said, you had a Deputy Prime Minister who had got his media advisor pregnant and then had shuffled her through various jobs within the National Party so as not to, you know, breach the official rules. And there were a host of other stories that went to that as well. There was also a sexual harassment allegation or complaint that was filed against him with the National Party, you know, which we also revealed at the Daily Telegraph. So, look, this was a lot of reporting. You know, the fact reporting on affairs, which is what the ABC did on Monday night, as Paul Kelly said, this will redefine what's in the public interest. There should be a debate about it. We haven't in the past exposed political affairs, and there are plenty of them. You know, you'd have barely anyone left in Canberra if you sacked people for having an affair. We haven't gone down that path of exposing people's affairs, and you know, that is a discussion about whether that is in the public interest, whether it's something the public broadcaster should be investing resources and money looking at. And there's also the, you know, the family impact to consider, and I suppose every case is unique.
So let's go back to your story, because I want to make a contrast here. What was the reaction?
Well, probably most people will remember it. There was heavy criticism directed at the Daily Telegraph, at my editor Chris Dorr, at Kyla Lasuki, my colleague, and myself for publishing. We were told by the majority of the media that it wasn't in the public interest. Both left and right sections of the media said it was not in the public interest. It shouldn't have been published. It was an intrusion of his privacy, of hers, which is quite an extraordinary argument because, you know, what would have happened that Christmas? Barnaby Joyce was going to send out a Christmas card suddenly with a new wife and a new family on it. You know, at some point, this was going to be in the public domain. We published it when they were 2 months, you know, before they were going to have the baby.
All right.
And in terms
that
of
reaction,
yes,
yeah.
No, exactly.
Well, just asking you to contrast that reaction to the reaction to this ABC story, and particularly the reaction of the ABC that carved you up to their own story, which I thought was essentially far more trivial.
Yeah, I mean, there's been massive hypocrisy. There's no question about it. Enormous hypocrisy. And I think you're right. You said in your editorial, it's because it's the ABC. I mean, it's because we're News Corp. Virtually anything we publish.
You've got it. Murdoch newspaper, therefore, there you go.
And I see it with a lot of my reporting, you know, the coronavirus coverage as well. You know, the dossier I got from concerned Western governments, which outlined the case of cover-up by China. You know, had the ABC published it, would it have had the same reaction? Unlikely. So I think, you know, figures like Bernard Keane and many others who slammed us for that story have not at all lifted a pen, you know, said a word against the ABC. So we do have clear double standards. It doesn't matter what you do at News Corp. There is so much hatred directed to us.
You got it.
That they're going to criticise it.
Sharri, just I've run out of time, but I just got to ask you very quickly. I was disturbed by the way the ABC framed it as here's two people having a consensual affair, both adults, both married, but the ABC presented the woman as the victim of a male culture. Are you comfortable with that as a strong woman yourself?
Well, look, I think what we saw was a consensual affair on Four Corners program. And then, as you said, another allegation of the Attorney General kissing a woman in a bar. I think that those two things should not be conflated by an entirely sexist culture in Canberra. You know, of course, sexism exists in politics like in anywhere, but you can't use the example of one consensual affair to say the entire political environment is sexist. And you have so many female journalists, female political editors, you know, female chiefs of staff, female politicians. I just don't, having spent, you know, a good 2 years there recently and 2 years there early in my career, I have never found it to be an environment consistent with the 1950s.
But also, Sharri, you know, two consenting adults, there's no victim normally in that. There might be, but we should presume they're equals and equally guilty or equally happy, equally responsible. Sharri Markson, thank you so much indeed for your time.
Thank you so much, Andrew.